General Understanding is brought to you by Dominion Energy's Talent Acquisition Team and Veterans Resource Group. We're proud to share our military podcast with you. We invite you to visit dominionenergy.com/military to learn more about our military programs and Dominion Energy careers to find the career you love.
Welcome to General Understanding, a podcast for Dominion Energy employees, where we speak with individuals who support our military and veteran communities, and where we will recognize veteran and other military-connected employees who are helping to transform the way we do business. In today's episode, we speak with Lori Adams, Veterans Policy Director with the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, or NASWA. NASWA represents state workforce agencies in all 50 states, D.C., and U.S. territories. These agencies assist with veteran reemployment, career and business services, as well as provide policy expertise, sharing promising state practices, and promoting state innovation and leadership in workforce development. Today's topics will include additional information about NASWA, describing the difference between LVERs and DVOPs, exploring what the National Labor Exchange is, and also describing what American Job Centers are and what they provide. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
I'll hold your hands and you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
Welcome to General Understanding, a conversation for betterment for all employees to learn more about veterans, a platform for unity, embracing communities, perfect opportunity to value you and me, those who serve their country and fought for our rights, to the family and friends of those who sacrifice. This is dedicated to all, and by the way, I salute our armed forces every day as your holiday.
Hold your hands and you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
I'm Matt Kellum, Military and Recruitment Program Coordinator for Dominion Energy, and today we have with us Lori Adams, who is the Veterans Policy Director for the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, or NASWA, as we can call it and shorten it a bit. But Lori, I'm very excited to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Matt. I'm thrilled to be here as well and have a great discussion about what your company is doing for vets and how we can partner with you as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here, and as I have admitted to you in some recent conversations, I think I had a little bit of an advantage by being able to watch one of your Psych Armor videos. Actually, I guess maybe a couple years ago. And then I think, as you probably recall from me sharing with you, but Psych Armor was our first guest on our very first episode. So anyway, we have a small world, tight community here in this veteran support side of things. So, but yes, thank you so much for being with us. I know you have a very busy role and schedule. And with that, if you don't mind, introduce yourself a little bit more to the guest and maybe describe your role a bit and how you ended up with NASWA.
Okay. Well, thanks, Matt. My name is Lori Adams. I'm the Veterans Policy Director for the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, as Matt said. That's a mouthful. So we're NASWA. We're not NASA. Sometimes people have asked me if I've met any astronauts, and no, I haven't. not to my knowledge. But I am originally from Iowa, where I still live. I'm a virtual worker, have been for the last 5 years, which was convenient in the pandemic, although certainly virtual work then and now are slightly different. I think Matt would attest to that too.
Yeah.
But I started off after college and a bunch of different jobs, like a lot of people do while you're trying to find your way. Ended up working in state government for a number of years and worked my way through to a number of different leadership positions, and ended up in a situation where I was literally managing the American Job Centers across the entire state and all the programs that are involved in those. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those centers do and don't do a little later on. But I ended up having an opportunity to join NASWA 5 years ago. And able to work virtually. And NASWA is a membership organization. Our members are all 50 states, DC, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And we provide a lot of policy information, strategic development, running interference on some federal policies, and a lot of information sharing, particularly of promising practices that other states have developed. And in my role, I also connect with a lot of employers who are specifically interested in recruiting, hiring, and retaining veterans, which is how I happened to meet Matt. Full disclosure, I'm not a veteran. One of my biggest, as I told Matt, it's one of my big regrets. But what I look at it, the way I look at it now is that now I'm serving those who served. And so I'm an advocate for employers to hire veterans. I'm an advocate for resolving some of the barriers and issues that veterans sometimes face when they're transitioning out of the military and developing a new career.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, you know this better than anyone, and I've certainly learned it in my 20 plus years in this space. But yeah, you certainly do not have to be a veteran to care and to provide the services that our separate transitioning service members and veterans and their families need. So we certainly appreciate that, and I think that's a huge compliment to you and your career to have climbed the way that you've described to the role that you're in. And I also want to highlight, I know you'll be able to share this even just throughout the discussion today, but I want to highlight that all that you've just briefly mentioned throughout your career, and especially in your role now and the teams that you lead, it is much more than just employment services. It's your teams are not just helping veterans with employment, which is certainly a big piece of that, or employers with finding those service members, veterans, and other connected, but it's policies, it's other support services. It's so much more. And so that's some of what, I know we'll be interested in learning more from you about. And I just want to, I know our employees know this, and I just want to contribute it to the conversation, but, Dominion Energy, while we're based in Richmond, Virginia, which is where I'm sitting. So, here we are several states away, but we do have representation across 20 states. So, it's good to be able to meet and connect and work with you and your teams in these various states so that we can continue to improve our own programs. So I just wanted to call out a few of those things. With that, can you tell us a little bit more, just to paint us a picture about not only your role, but what do your current teams look like? And maybe that it might be a good time for you to tell us, what are these LVERs and Devops? What in the world are those things?
Well, Matt, it wouldn't be the government if we didn't have acronyms or, I feel like I need to pass out a decoder ring to people.
Yeah.
LVERs and Devops, let me explain. Those are different job titles that are funded by the United States Department of Labor, their Veterans Employment and Training Service, which is USDOL Vets. There's another acronym for you. And the money that funds it is called the Jobs for Veterans State Grant, or JVSG, another acronym. But to answer your question, the two primary positions that those funds pay for, and these are state employees. The Devops, that stands for Disabled Veteran Outreach Program. And the LVERs are the local veteran employment representatives. And these are two two distinctly different job titles with two distinctly different job responsibilities and roles and job duties. The DVOPs, I would say 99% of them are disabled veterans themselves, and that is a requirement that people that are serving veterans as DVOPs are veterans themselves. And as I said, most of them have a VA rating, or they have a disability that perhaps was incurred after service, and oftentimes those disabilities are invisible to you or me, and we don't necessarily know, nor is it important for me to know what the disability is. But the DVOPs are providing, and I really don't like the word case management, but that's in the vernacular.
Sure.
They're providing intensive one-on-one services with veterans who have what they call a significant barrier to employment. And that's written in federal policy. Some of those barriers would be, if they were at risk of being homeless, if they just got out of an incarceration situation, if they have a disability, if they are low income. Those are just some of the categories that are what they call significant barriers to employment. They also work with specific targeted populations, 18 to 24-year-old veterans, Vietnam era veterans, caregivers, people that have, and military spouses who are serving in caregiver type roles. So,
Okay.
because those individuals, because they have that barrier, they're working with them. They can't necessarily fix that barrier for that person, but they can connect them with resources and other entities that have those resources, have those funds, have those experts that can help them, either resolve that barrier or figure out how to get around it. Sometimes
That's
you
good.
just have to kind of go under, over, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't always fix things. I mean, if someone has a disability, can't fix it. Perhaps if they're low income, you can fix it by helping them get a job. Or if they haven't, maybe they've got I know of a number of military individuals who got out of the service kind of in a hurry to get out because, they were done. But yet they
Right.
had an injury that they, had happened to them, but they never bothered to go to the VA, never bothered to get that rating because it just wasn't important at the time. Well,
Right.
unfortunately, 20 years down the road, that injury becomes more unmanageable. And then at that point, it's a real bear to go back to the VA and try and prove that that was a service-connected disability, which compensation, they're missing out on the potential for compensation. So the DVOPs are really trying to help people become job ready, resolve those barriers or work through those barriers. In some cases, there is no resolution, but helping them perhaps get an increase in their compensation. Some folks need some help getting their discharge upgraded. Maybe they got out of the military and their discharge was less than stellar.
Sure.
You can't always fix some of the worst case situations, but I think about the last statistics I saw, about 25% of the veterans who were looking for a discharge upgrade were able to get one, which
That's good.
then does help them with future employment or other situations. So that's kind of what the DVOPs do. They're case managers or problem solvers. They have a really good handle on the resources in their community to help those individuals. Now, the LVERs, on the other hand, the local veteran employment representatives, are part of business services teams, and their job is to promote veterans to employers as exceptional employees. That
Right.
you know why an employer like Dominion should hire a veteran. What does a
Yeah.
veteran bring to the table? And unfortunately, in some cases, it's also dispelling myths. Some people don't have any experience in working with veterans, and they think that everybody is, you know, combat hardened,
Mhm.
whatever,
Yep.
and they don't understand there
Sure.
are so many jobs in the military, and the military does such an exceptional job of training their personnel, and they learn things that while they may be specific to a military occupation, that is often transferable in the civilian world. And a lot of
Right.
and part of the leaver's job is to educate employers on those military occupations and help them understand what those skill sets are. I frequently use the example of 11 Bravos, infantry in the Army. I've heard employers say, "Oh, they're just policemen." Wrong answer. You know, 11 Bravos are team players. They take care of equipment. They show up on time. They take direction. They know that they have to wear a certain uniform every day. I mean, there's so many wonderful skills that any employer would want. You can train them to do your job, but it's really hard to train somebody to be a team player. So the lever is a salesperson in this one sense of
Right.
selling veterans to employers about why they should hire them. In some cases, it's a really easy lift because the employer was a veteran themselves and they get it.
Sure.
Um, so it's also making sure that that employer knows about the services available to them through the American Job Center. So one is a problem solver solving barriers. One is a problem solver making sure that veterans have opportunities in the workplace.
Well, first, thank you for describing that. Even though I have learned all of what you said over 20 plus years, I never mind hearing it over and over and over again because it's so important. I want to tease out a few of the things you mentioned. So I'll just start with educating employers. And based on what I just said, it doesn't matter. And that's actually the one of the main purposes of us wanting to do this podcast is we just want to routinely educate our peers, our leaders, and those who might be hiring on these types of topics, and especially yours today. But educating employers is really important. The other, and these are in no particular order, but dispelling myths, I think, is a big one because, and it's fair. If you haven't had a reason to be connected to the military in any way, shape, or form, well, then it's easy to make some assumptions. So we just want to work on educating our peers and leaders and dispelling those myths. I really like your example about the 11 Bravo. I was in the Marine Reserves, and I was an 1833, which is amphibious assault vehicle crewman or crew chief is how I exited as a crew chief. But either way, the point being is those are two tactical roles. But to your point, there is a lot that we do bring to an employer. And one of the things that I like to really highlight is take even some of your special ops folks from any of the branches. Um, Man, they know operations, they know how to run programs, they know how to execute or plan and execute, and they do so globally. So anyway,
Mhm.
I just wanted to point that out. And then the very last thing, so I just have been taking some notes while you were speaking, is the support services. So kind of those wraparound services, whether it be on the front end, helping that service member or veteran or family member preparing for and navigating through certain things that aren't just job related, but might get them job ready. Those are so important. And I'll give one example, and then I'll turn the mic back to you. But Dominion Energy is extremely proud of our Veterans Resource Group, among many other things that we do, especially in this military and veteran space. And over the years, and we haven't been able to do much of it this year, and we've done a few over the past few years, but we've had what we call veteran benefit briefings. So in a couple of our locations, I think Ohio, several different locations in Virginia, we've actually had a veteran representative of some type, whether it was a leaver or maybe someone from the VA side of things. But either way, they come in and they talk about the different services and help explain some of the benefits. But the point being is, I've never seen a more attentive audience than the 20 to 60 or 70 veterans that were in those respective rooms ever. And I think, having presented to folks that, you might get people on their phone, you might get people maybe dozing off, but I have never seen almost 100% attention like I have in those briefings. And it all boiled down to they really were interested in hearing from these representatives, no matter what side, whether it's the lever or the other VA reps, but they were just interested in hearing someone help them explain simply and simply navigate the systems. So I apologize to the listeners and to you for rambling, but those are some really important things that that I think were good to call out. And thank you for describing what those roles are and that they sit at our American Job Centers. What can on that note, can you describe a little bit more about the American Job Centers and what is that and why do these respective functions, why do they sit there and work in those locations?
I would love to talk about that.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a misunderstanding of an American Job Center. And particularly right now in the middle of this pandemic and all the news on the media about unemployment insurance, some of it is understandable. But I really want to stress that an American Job Center is not the unemployment office.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a place where you go to find out more information about that, but it is not its singular function. There are so many other things that happen in an American Job Center. And yes, they can help people with unemployment, but the really important function they have is to help people become reemployed or resolve those barriers or connect with community resources that can either help them to get or maintain employment. There are about 2,400 of them across the United States. All states have them. They sometimes go by different names. You'll hear American Job Center or AJC, another acronym, a one-stop center or a career center. And really one of the most beautiful things about them is that typically there are multiple agencies housed in an American Job Center under one roof. So
Right.
in the past, a long time ago, agencies tended to be in their own brick and mortar location. And so if someone was looking for assistance, they might have to drive all day long, going to different locations and not even knowing maybe that another agency existed or provided the exact type of assistance they were looking for. So in an American Job Center or AJC, you'll often find agencies that have money for training assistance. If someone is in a low income situation, you can find out about if you can get SNAP benefits, used to be known as food assistance or food stamps. You can look for a job. You can take a number of no cost workshops to either help you do a resume, improve the resume you have, practice job seeking skills. There's frequently career events on site where you can connect with employers that are hiring. There's just a ton of stuff going on, and there is no stigma attached with going on. I mean, nobody wants to go to the unemployment office because that
Sure.
means you've lost your job. And employers typically aren't real crazy about unemployment because it's a tax that they pay. A lot of people misunderstand that. They think they've been paying in on for the tax and therefore they should get unemployment. And it's employers are paying for that. And so employers are also cognizant of when people are filing for unemployment. Their tax rate can go up and there's lots of reasons why employers are not particularly fond of it. Um, but in this current environment with the pandemic, so many people have been furloughed, or just the simple fact of how things are working out, that their businesses are not open because of the fear of infection or people getting sick. But and so right now, some of the American Job Centers across the United States are closed to the public during the pandemic. Some of them are open by appointment. All of them are open virtually. So
Yeah.
you can still call an American Job Center and get services. A lot of them have developed virtual tools and trainings and opportunities. You can still talk to, if you're a veteran, you can still talk to a lever and DVOP.
Yeah.
I just had the opportunity to step into a virtual career fair that the state of Colorado put on.
Okay.
Really cool. I mean, they had it was I don't even remember what platform they used, but you could go in there, you could see what employers were participating, what kind of jobs they had, and then you could actually talk to that employer and apply for a job online and share
Yeah.
your resume, share your credentials. And there was no cost to the employer to do that. It was no cost to the job seeker. So states have had to be adaptive in this scenario. But don't forget that the American Job Center is there to help you get or keep a job or find a new one. And that's another thing I really want to stress. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're hearing that nobody's hiring right now. Well, I know
Right.
Dominion Energy is hiring.
Yeah.
A lot of sectors are hiring. I mean, obviously, healthcare, we all know about that. IT has got a lot of hiring. Energy sector jobs are considered essential. And so you are never lost a beat. You still are hiring. Southern Company, we heard from them the other day that they had an immediate opening in the state of Mississippi trying to get in. They reached out to me so I could connect with Mississippi and get the DVOP and lever to connect with them and make sure that they get on the job of finding someone for that opening. So the HAC is about employment or
Right.
reemployment. It's not about, yeah, unemployment is there, and sometimes it's driving the bus. But um, if anyone is ever feeling like they don't want to be in their neighbor, see them go in there, well, their neighbor was probably in there the day before.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
and there's no, and people are tight on funds. There's no cost to the services available to you through the American Job Center. So you can find that information online. You can just Google Career One Stop and you'll find them. They're all over the place. And as I said, even if their brick and mortar location is closed, they're still accessible.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you are have emphasized several times these. I mean, these are services. Like if I needed services, I can go to the American Job Center, and I could call or virtually connect and go to one of the one stops, because there are more services that, even, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but even if Matt Kellum, who is gainfully employed, there might still be other things that they can help me understand
Mhm.
and navigate and then go from there more simply than if I was just trying to figure it out by myself, or just, at this point in time, stuck at home and just getting frustrated. So anyway, thank you for emphasizing that these American Job Centers and the LVERs and the Devops and all the other various folks that might work at these centers and these the one stops and the career centers, it is so much more than employment or reemployment. And so we should all consider reaching out and taking advantage, if we feel we have
Mhm.
the need or want to learn more. I want to cover one more thing, which is really, really important, I believe. So we've talked about the people and where they work. What is, if you can, describe to us, what is the National Labor Exchange?
Okay. That's another role that I cover within our organization. And the National Labor Exchange is essentially a job bank. It's the largest nonprofit job bank in the United States, and you can find it at usnlx.com. That's the main site. There are other subsets, microsites, mirror sites, whatever of that. But the National Labor Exchange is unique for several different reasons. First off, well, I can think of more than I just thought of another one, but there is no cost for job seekers to use it. But it it's unique because the content on that site only comes from three places. It'll come directly from employers, from their corporate career sites. So you know the job is real and legit, and they really are hiring. And it is. We also get job content from the states. The states all have job banks. We get a feed from them on a daily basis. And we also, the third leg of our stool is usajobs.gov, which is the federal government portal. So we get jobs from only three sites, and we refresh that content on a daily basis. So any jobs that have been filled or the employer took them off the site, the next day they're going to be gone. That's
Good.
important because sometimes you go in and look at it and you don't, the job seems like it's been there a long time and you're thinking, is that job still
Yeah.
available or what's wrong with that job?
Right.
um,
Right.
but so you can feel assured that the job content is real, that it's current and it's currently available. And it also cuts down on duplication. We strive for no duplication because for that reason, we don't go in and take job content from other job portals that may exist. We know they take ours, but we don't take others because we can't control that content. And I don't want anyone to be put off by the word control, but we're trying to control the
Sure.
content so that it is current and is available, and it's jobs that you can find right now.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, we were running close to 3 million jobs on any given day on that site in
Wow.
every sector, every line of work you can imagine, from a donut maker to an architect to Matt's job. Not really, but
I hope not.
it's easy, and then there's other versions of it, but that's the one I would suggest going to. It's
Yeah.
available 24/7. It's refreshed on a daily basis. And there are um, companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Dominion Energy and Southern Company and Apple and you name it, major corporations that have their job content on those sites, and then small companies as well that maybe don't do a lot of hiring, but when they do, they tend to not have HR departments. So jobs from all sectors all over the United States, and it's there at no cost to the job seeker.
Yeah, and I'll repeat the website just for folks who are listening. It's USN as in November, L as in Lima, X as in X-ray. So USNLX.com. And just for our listeners who are probably more interested in the fact that, hey, if I'm a hiring leader, is my job out there available to these veterans and others? And the answer is yes. Dominion Energy actually has partnered for a lot of years with an organization called Direct Employers, and they do scrape our site every night, as you described, and push it out to like the USNLX and hundreds of, and if not thousands of other sites, depending on the job category. So with that, I just want to give just a quick summary of the things we've talked about. We've talked about American Job Centers. We've talked about the LVERs and the Devops and all those wonderful acronyms that the military and government likes to use. And we've learned about the National Labor Exchange as well as some other information in between. And again, I just want to point out, even for our employees and leaders, it is great to either use yourselves and or encourage your employees or maybe their family members to leverage some of these services. So with that, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and we've gotten used to having a portion of our show called At Ease, which I know in the military is just basically a command to tell people to relax and stop standing at attention. So for this At Ease portion of today's show, I am curious to know if you have, and I think you mentioned there's maybe more than one, but do you have a favorite quote or maybe a couple that you'd like to share with us? And I'll share with you afterwards
Okay.
what mine is.
I actually do have several, and I think I'll share those with you, but I think most of them are probably, I think you'll, when you hear them, you'll understand, or maybe assume that I am a person who tends to ask for forgiveness rather
Mhm.
than asking for permission. And I hesitate to say that because I don't, I also work for an organization, and I have to follow certain rules within my organization. I can't just do whatever I darn well please anytime I feel like doing it.
Me
But
too.
there are times when, and I do have enough latitude that I can make some decisions. And in my previous life, I could make higher level decisions. So I do tend to ask for forgiveness. So Katharine Hepburn once said, if you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun. Um, but at the same time, Franklin Roosevelt told us all that, try, and I'll just paraphrase, basically try something. If it
Right.
doesn't work, if it fails, admit it, move on, and try again. So, try and try again, try something, don't just throw up your hands in defeat and say, well, forget that. And as
Right.
Gretzky, the great one, said, you'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
That's right.
I'm all about really trying to be, looking for solutions, being a problem solver, not always asking for forgiveness. And I really believe in being decisive.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have all the facts at your command when you need to make that decision. So you make the
Sure.
decision and then you assess and you move on and you adapt and refine.
Yeah, and again, we have an advantage of chatting before these sessions are recorded, and you'd mentioned those, and I'm similar. I take similar approaches, but I always want to be respectful of rules and protocol. But I'll share with you and the listeners what mine is. When I was in high school, I chose to do one of my reports on James Baldwin, and so one of the quotes that just over the years, and I will admit, I kind of forgotten about it in time, but I've recently just come to refer to it a little more often is not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And for me, that really means a lot, even at different phases in life. One example I'll use now is I have young daughters that are 8 and 11, and so I'm trying to teach them confidence and like try, and if you don't try, you don't even have a chance to succeed. So basically, I just want them to feel comfortable with facing things that are in front of them and doing so with some character. And I think I don't know, it dawned on me that this, sharing some quotes might align well with just the military and veteran connected theme of the podcast. Well, thank you for sharing those, and thanks so much. I know you and I have a chance, especially these days, to interact quite a bit. We're on each other's webinars, and you're nice enough to join us here. As we're closing out this particular session, are there any additional events or programs that you'd like to mention to our Dominion Energy listeners? And then how can folks connect with you should they want to do so?
Well, thanks for that. Yes, we're having our NASWA has an annual veterans conference. This year, we normally are in person. Obviously, that's changed, and we're doing a virtual session in just actually 2 weeks from today. That's kind of
Yep.
scary. Um, and it's attended by the Devops and the LVERs that we talked about from across the United States, who are learning about how other people are doing things, sharing best practices, hearing from employers on, really what they're looking for in new employees and what kind of criteria they're looking for. And I do want to thank Matt because, and I also want to congratulate Dominion Energy because we're having a panel in that conference that is highlighting recipients of the Department of Labor's Hire Vets Medallion program. And Dominion Energy is considered a large platinum employer. And so we're going to have a panel, and Matt will be representing Dominion. And the idea behind that is to share Dominion's hiring strategies and what it's like to work at Dominion and what are you looking for when you're hiring new staff, so that because you're in 20 states and
Right.
you'll be able, a lot of the people at this event, Dominion has a facility in their state and in their location. And if they can help prepare people for a career with your organization, it's great that they'll be able to hear it directly from the horse's mouth about what you're looking for and what you need. So that's something that's coming up in the next couple weeks. And like I said, I want to thank Matt for taking the time to be part of that event. And
Oh, sure.
anyone, if you want to reach out and connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Lori is LORIADAMS. And so feel free to contact me that way. And there's messaging, and you can send me your email, and I will follow up with you personally. I do believe in answering my email. Sometimes the phone is harder.
Well, I can attest to the fact that you are very prompt in your responses,
Thank
as I
you.
was bugging you to join us on this podcast. And thanks for, just to reiterate again, I appreciate the invite to be a guest of yours at the annual Veterans Conference. And again, as we said at the beginning of this podcast, it's just so important to regularly stay in contact and keep the relationships with the LVERs and the Devops and you and all the rest of the teams out there, because I think with relationships we not only, of course, grow and strengthen our partnerships, but then we can continue to regularly educate those around us. And thank you again for mentioning how folks can reach out to you on LinkedIn. With that, Lori, I hate that it's over because time goes by so quickly, but I selfishly for me, I'll get to see you multiple times over the coming weeks. But But thank you again. We appreciate having you on our General Understanding podcast.
Thank you, Matt. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk to your listeners and to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
That's all we have for today's episode. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation. For more information about the company's military program, visit dominionenergy.com/military or search military program on the company's HR home site. To provide feedback for the show or to send us your questions, email militaryrelations@dominionenergy.com. A special thanks to Dennis McDade, Air Force veteran employee, for our theme music. Join us for our next episode when we have Adam Lee, Dominion Energy's Vice President and Chief Security Officer, on the show, and where we talk about Adam's experiences in the FBI and why he chose to join the Dominion Energy team, his appreciation for serving others and working with military veterans, and his role as the executive champion for the Dominion Energy Veterans Resource Group. Thank you for listening, and remember, actions speak louder.
I'll hold your hands, you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
Welcome to General Understanding, a conversation for betterment for all employees to learn more about veterans, a platform for unity, embracing communities, perfect opportunity to value you and me, those who served our country and fought for our rights, to the family and friends of those who sacrificed. This is dedicated to all, and by the way, I salute our armed forces every day as your holiday.